So,
No, ma'am. Today it will be not finished. I'm sure.
I will just try to. So Yashwati, we have been having these sessions for around, it's been about 10 days, Vinamra. We've had
Right.
session with Atul, then we've had sessions on career counseling. So I think this is fourth or fifth session we are having with Shulini.
Yeah, in the
Yes.
last 10 days. Yes.
Do you have participants, Vinamra, in the waiting room?
Ma'am, we have 5 people who have joined.
Just admit them. Let me see their students or teachers.
Ma'am, you can see it in the attendees. I
Hmm.
think they are students.
I'll just put it on participants. You haven't admitted anybody. Actually, you have. Okay. 6 to 10. They are teachers only as of now. So Professor Atul would be joining.
No.
No, ma'am. Yashudip sir will be conducting this whole
All
session.
right. So I'll put the slide on that. No,
Yes, ma'am.
are we live, Vinamra?
Ma'am, we are not live on Facebook, but the session here is open. We have 14 people now, 16. They have started joining in. I'll just wait for your cue and then we'll go live on Facebook and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you can start.
More students are expected to join through this Zoom session or on Facebook Live?
So mostly we'll be joining through the Zoom session.
Vinamra, if you could give me permission to share the screen.
You already have the permission. No?
All right. I'll just edit just the slide on Yashwati because I had put it for Atul also.
Okay.
Shikha, the time suits you for tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah, we'll after this session,
Yeah,
I'll talk
we'll
to you.
negotiate
Yeah.
it.
So, ma'am, we have around 40 participants now. Should we start, or do you want us to wait for a minute?
I think we can wait. Mr. Yashodeep, can we wait for 2 or 3 more minutes?
Sure. That's fine.
Mukta ma'am, if you can drop the message in the groups, hai na, then they can just join.
I'm doing that.
Okay. Yashodeep sir, my team was very excited today. Vinamra said, "Nahi ma'am, ye wala session to maine karwana hai." You know, it's been long. It was a big break, and Shashank also, like, you know, they all were so excited, and they were asking me, "हमने ये break दिया?" मैंने कहा, "हमने summer vacations का break दिया था." So now we are again starting, and you know,
Thank you.
we'll be doing those sessions. Remember, we did a session with Emerald Heights School in Indore, if you remember, sir.
Yes.
So they wanted another session, but then I just thought, I said, I'll talk to you if we can, you know, change the format for them.
Sure.
That will be the
We
second-
can talk offline. Yeah, we can
Yeah,
talk offline. this
Yeah.
too.
Vinamra, how many do we have? Let's check. My screen is-
56.
I think we can
56, ma'am.
begin. Yeah, we can begin. Yeah.
Just give me a second, ma'am. We'll be live on Facebook, and then we can
Mukta ma'am, you will start the session?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I will. Vinamra, may I?
Good afternoon, Vinamra ji. Good.
Yes, ma'am, we can begin.
Good afternoon,
Good
ma'am.
Good afternoon, Vinu ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Please go
A very
ahead.
good afternoon, everyone. We are here for a wonderful session on our epic Ramayana. We are honored to have with us Mr. Yashodeep, who is a successful entrepreneur and a former McKinsey consultant. Yashodeep is an alumnus of IIT Mumbai and IIM Ahmedabad. He has poured all of his energies into exploring and explaining Valmiki's Ramayana. He's the creator of Valmiki 21 Notes, Valmiki Ramayana, a series of short videos. They appeal to the modern mind, especially because the approach is fresh, unbiased, and rational. Through his solid research and creative approach, he hopes to connect today's youth to ancient epic, which has neither lost its resonance nor its relevance. He inspires youngsters to not just ask questions, but also find their own answers. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I would also like to welcome our Honorable Principal, Dr. Renu Sehgal. Thank you, ma'am, for giving this opportunity to hold all these live webinars.
Thank you, Mukta, and thank you, Yashodeep ji, for sparing your valuable time. We are looking forward.
Thank you.
I would also like to welcome our headmistress, Ms. Suhani Daur, in charges, HODs, teachers, and all our dear students for this live webinar. Thank you all for being a part of us today, and the stage is all yours, Mr. Yashodeep.
Thank you very much to the school authorities of GD Goenka Public School, as well as Shulini University for organizing this talk. It's a pleasure to speak to the students today. We are talking of Valmiki Ramayana, the oldest epic. And why are we talking about it in the 21st century, in today's times? What is the relevance of the Valmiki Ramayana? Also, is it a true story at all or not? There are always a lot of questions that we have about the Ramayana. So let us explore some of these questions in the session today. Today's session will be a mix of some short videos that we'll be playing from the 21 Notes YouTube channel and discussions on these videos. So to kickstart the session, let us watch the first video and then come back for the discussion. Vinamra, if you can play season 1, episode 1, please.
Ramayana, the story of Ram, the story that we know so well and yet know so little. We celebrate Dasara to mark Ram's victory over Ravan and Diwali on the day of his return to Ayodhya. And we may remember some of the stories from the Ramayana TV serial, YouTube videos and comics. But who was Ram? Was he a person or God or both? Or was he neither and is all of Ramayana just fiction? Was Hanuman a monkey? Was Ravan really all that bad? And how did Ravan with his 10 heads enter a room? Did he make a sideways entry? And why, oh why, did Ram ask Sita to leave? Was a bridge really built to cross the sea to get to Lanka? And what about the Pushpak Viman? Answers to all these questions and much more is to be found in the Valmiki Ramayana, the story that Valmiki wrote soon after Ram's return from Lanka, and which was later retold by Kalidas, Tulsidas, Kamba, and many others over the millennia. The story that has inspired millions over the ages in our land. I urge you to read the Valmiki Ramayana with me. In fact, I implore you. But why do that, you will ask? Yes, it's not easy. This is a book that has 500 chapters and 24,000 verses. And it is in Sanskrit. Besides, some of you may say, I'm not that religious in the conventional sense. But the Valmiki Ramayana is not a religious book in the conventional sense. There are no religious do's and don'ts in the book. As Valmiki explicitly states, it is the life story of a brave, just man who became a role model in his own lifetime. It is a historical book. Valmiki himself says that this is Ramasya Charitam, Ram's biography, Ramasya Vrittam, Ram's story. And to make things crystal clear, he also says that what he is writing is Itihas. Iti, ha, asa. That is how it happened. It is not surprising that some remain skeptical about this, given that this story has often been described, just like the Mahabharata, as mythology. Now don't take my word when I say that the Valmiki Ramayana is a historical text. But likewise, don't take anyone else's word for the opposite as well. Make up your own mind, but please only after reading the book, or in this case, listening. Disclaimer. Many of us have a deep emotional connection with Ram, Sita and Hanuman. We may have our preferred version of the Ramayana. This reading is based on the Valmiki Ramayana published by the Gorakhpur Gita Press. So let us dust off this Adi Kavya, the oldest epic, and read it in its original form. 24,000 verses is a lot to cover. Thankfully, Valmiki gives us an executive summary at the beginning, which we will see in the next episode. Remember also Valmiki's instruction, Punyaya mitrebhyah preshayet janah. This means that you should forward this video to all your friends and groups on Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram and all social media. Just kidding. Of course, Valmiki did not say that last line, but do forward nevertheless. Iti, ha, asa. That is how it happened.
So with that introduction, let's get started with our discussion. I can see that there are a few hands raised in the Zoom app. So please do post your questions in the Q&A part. And also, to make this more interactive, let me ask you, and you can put your answers right now in the chat. We will also have some polls during the session, but right now just put your answers in the chat. How many of you think that the Ramayana is a true story? So true, yes, no, is it fiction? I don't know, in whatever way you want to answer, you can put your answers in the chat. I'll just wait for a few seconds to get some answers. By the way, Vinamra, the volume of the video was a bit high for me. You can check offline with somebody else also and adjust the volume if you want to make it a bit lower. So I have some answers coming. Those of you who are logged in, please do put in some answers. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. I just want to get a sense for how you're thinking about this right now. And we'll take the discussion from there. There are also some questions. Some people have put their answers in the Q&A part. Please put that in the chat so we can all see it together. And as is often the case, there are quite a few who say that, yes, this is a true story. Some believe that it's partially true, and some do not believe that it's true. All that is fine. I have a few answers, and also some who think that it's true. We are not really sure. All that is fine. And now, really, the only way to answer this question truthfully is to read the book ourselves and to find out. Many times we have an opinion about the Ramayana without having read the original. And this is shocking because here's a text that has inspired our land for thousands of years. And we have some opinion about it without even reading it. My effort in this case, and I was guilty of the same thing as well. Till a few years ago, I was running my own business and I had not much to do with the Valmiki Ramayana. But when I read the original by Maharshi Valmiki in Sanskrit, I thought that this is incredible. This is not the Ramayana I thought I knew. And that is why the effort to make these videos. Now, a follow-up question to, a lot of us think that it's true. Vinamra, can you put up the poll about the Vanaras? Let's see how people respond to that. So the question is, who were the Vanaras? Were they monkeys, primitive tribes, a different race altogether, or none of the above? Again, if you can put your answers on the poll, so we'll get the statistics for that. Very interesting. So we have about 40–50% of the people who have voted. Right now, the most number of votes are for the answer A, monkeys. About 2/3 of the people think that it is monkeys. I urge everybody else also who is not yet voted, so we get the best understanding of how our group is thinking right now on this. Okay, so we have, Vinamra, you can publish these answers so everybody can see that. The vote is clearly in favor of monkeys. 2/3 of us think that the Vanaras were monkeys. Of course, the name Vanar, what does it say? Vanar means monkeys. It's obvious, isn't it? Now let's put the two answers together. Most of us think that this is a true story. And the Vanaras were monkeys. So how did Hanuman, Vali, Sugriv, Tara, and the others talk to each other? How did they talk to Ram and Lakshman? Were they monkeys who could speak? Again, this is not to put anybody in a spot, but it's really to point out how for a lot of us, including me, before I started studying the Ramayana, there are so many things about the Ramayana that we don't know. Because then we try to say, oh, they were monkeys who were very advanced, who could speak, or they were primitive kind of Neanderthal people, all sorts of answers. The surprising thing is that in the Valmiki Ramayana, actually all of it is written clearly. And between the different Ramayans, so we of course have many versions of the Ramayana. There is the Tulsi Ramayana, there are so many others. It is considered by tradition all along that only the Valmiki Ramayana is Itihas. So if you have to answer the question, did that really happen? The reference book should be the Valmiki Ramayana. The others serve their own purposes. Some of them are more devotional in nature. Some of them are purely fictional. They take off the core story and add some fictional elements to it. But the Valmiki Ramayana was written as Itihas. Valmiki himself said, I am writing a true story about a person. Okay, now the question, what is the relevance of the Valmiki Ramayana in today's world? And very clearly, today, if any of you students want to become a sports person when you grow up, you may have an ideal that you want to be like such and such sports person. If you want to be a scientist, you may have an ideal. If you want to run a business, you may have some entrepreneur that you look up to and you say, I want to be like that. Now, what is the ideal for good behavior? And that is the relevance of Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki wanted to set the highest example of good behavior, the perfect person, so that we could all aspire to be the best that we can be. As long as there is bad behavior in society, called Rakshasi Pravritti, Rakshasatvam. There was bad behavior then. There were Rakshasas then. There is bad behavior today. Of course, we all agree to that. As long as that is true, we need an ideal of good behavior, the perfect person. And therefore, the Valmiki Ramayana is relevant today as well. Now, before we go further, once again, let me ask you a question and you can put your answers back in the chat. It's not multiple choice. If Valmiki Ramayana, if the Ramayana is sets the highest example of good behavior, the perfect person, do we really think that Ram is the example of good behavior, the perfect person? Again, answers yes or no, or any other free form as well. Do you think that what Ram did was the right thing, that is something we should look up to? Again, we've got few answers, 5, 6, but please go ahead, everybody. We have many more attendees than answers so far. And I'm quickly browsing through that. Many yes, and some say yes and no, not perfect, good but not perfect, not relevant to modern times. A variety of answers. Yes, please go ahead, who's still not written in. So some people agree and some people strongly disagree that Ram was the ideal person. Now think about it. When you want to understand whether what a person did or not is good or not, you have to understand exactly what he did. And right now we took a poll within our own group. Is it a true story or not? Most people said, yes, it's a true story. Then we said, were the Vanaras monkeys or not? Most people said, yes, they were monkeys. So how much do we know about the story? And we have already come to a judgment about Ram's behavior when we ourselves don't know so many things about the story. Now, the structure of the Ramayana is as follows. Let's get further into the Ramayana. The first book of the Ramayana is called the Balakand. There are 7 such books or parts of the text. In the Balakand, Valmiki sets the context. He describes the city of Ayodhya. Great description. You should watch episode 3 of this season. You will get to see what kind of a city it was. And he also talks about the people of Ayodhya, how the government was run, about the Vanaras and the Rakshasas. And all of these need to be understood before we get into the story itself, to understand what Ram did and why he did it. Now let's take this example of Vanaras. Who were the Vanaras? Let's see what Valmiki has said. We'll watch season 1, episode 7.
This is Valmiki Ramayana, Season 1, Episode 7, Vanaras. Who were the Vanaras? Were they monkeys? Or were they primitive tribes? Or were they a different race altogether? The answer is most emphatically none of the above. Valmiki has spelled out in no uncertain terms that the Vanaras were Vanacharinaha, people who roamed in the forests. And they were not a different race. Their genetic roots were the same as that of the city dwellers. Also, not only were they physically very strong, but they were extremely intelligent too. The Vanaras wore a tail and a headdress like a monkey, just as some tribal communities wear horns on their head. But there is no doubt that they were humans. Even in our times, fat cats in white shirts and black suits may look like penguins, but they are not penguins, nor are they cats. They are CEOs, investment bankers, and management consultants. And not all the forest-dwelling folks wore tails. Some resembled bears. Essentially, Vanam Rati iti Vanarah. The one who lives off the forest is a Vanar. Over time, the meaning became more limited, and the word Vanar started being used to denote monkeys only. Further, Valmiki says, Rukshishu cha tatha jata Vanarah kinnarishu cha. Some of the Vanaras were born to forest dwellers who dressed up like bears, and to Gandharvas. If Ruksha referred to bears and not to people who wore a bearskin, and Vanaras referred to monkeys and not to people who donned a face mask and a tail, then the above sentence by Valmiki would mean that monkeys were born to bears, which is obviously not what he meant. These forest communities were not a different race compared to the city dwellers, for Valmiki has said, distinguished rishis, siddhas, vidyadharas, uragas, charanas begot heroic sons who became forest dwellers. Note, some of the Vanaras were born to rishis, just like some of the Rakshasas, including Ravan, as well as some of the citizens of Ayodhya and other cities. The notion that forest communities were primitive people that were racially different from city-based people is absolutely false. Vanaras were physically very powerful, and they were also very intelligent. The intelligence part unfortunately got glossed over in some of the later retellings. But Valmiki is clear. The Vanaras were Nayadnyan Buddhi Sampannan Vishnutulya Parakraman, knowers of statecraft, endowed with intellect, and equal to Vishnu in prowess. Further, they were spread across forests and mountains throughout the world. Once again, the notion that the Vanaras were only in South India is completely incorrect. Iyam Prithvi Saparvata Vanarnava Kirna Taihi. This earth, with its mountains, forests, and seas, was pervaded by them. And Bhuv Samavrita Babhuva. The earth became covered by them. Extremely unfortunately, Vanaras are almost always characterized as monkeys in popular culture. Look at most contemporary comics, cartoons, or pictures on Ramayana. But look further back in history, and there is no confusion. For example, in the sculptures depicting Ramayana scenes at Ellora and Angkor Wat, Hanuman and the Vanaras are shown in a form, size, and proportion very similar to Ram and Lakshman. The only difference is that they are wearing a mask and a tail. After that background of the Vanaras in general, Valmiki now introduces the leaders among the Vanaras who will play a crucial role in the story later on. Vali, Sugriv, Tara, Nal, Neel, and Hanuman. Hanuman, born in Kishkinda in present-day Karnataka, and in popularity unmatched throughout India. The Hanuman Chalisa in Hindi, the Maruti Stotra in Marathi, and similar prayers in all languages. He is on everyone's lips in times that call for brave action or even otherwise. Now, what made this Vanar reach such exalted stature? We will have to wait many seasons to find that answer. with that short diversion out of Ayodhya to understand the background of the Rakshasas and the Vanaras, we will now head back into the city in the next episode. Life in the city is as good as it gets. But there is danger lurking not too far. Terrorist cells are beginning to pop up way too close to ignore. Iti, her, asa. That is how it happened.
So hopefully you found some new information about the Vanaras for you to make your own assessment and your own decision as to who were the Vanaras. And just like the Vanaras, even when it comes to Rakshasas, we have a lot of preconceptions and perhaps misconceptions. We may think they are the people of Sri Lanka or South India, or they are a different race. But Valmiki's words make it very clear. In fact, the first Rakshas that we come across in the Valmiki Ramayana is Tadaka. She's a woman. She stays not too far from Ayodhya, so she's not a South Indian. In fact, just 2 days walking distance away from Ayodhya, they came across Tadaka. And interestingly, she was not born a Rakshasi. She was actually born in a very good and wealthy family, and she became a Rakshasi because of her behavior. Valmiki has used the word Rakshasatvam. She became full of Rakshasness. So it was a behavioral trait, not a racial trait, not a racial classification. In the Balakand, as we understand the city of Ayodhya, the Vanaras and Rakshasas, still there are some incidents in Balakand and even afterwards that we find hard to believe. We say, if this is Itihas, then how is this possible? Let us look at one of these incidents, one of these stories, which is the birth of Ganga. And let's understand the concept of Purva Vrittam Katha Yuktam. Let's watch season 1, episode 13.
This is Valmiki Ramayana, season 1, episode 13, Ganga. As they headed north from Siddhashram to Mithila, Vishwamitra told his fellow travelers, Ram, Lakshman and the Rishis, the history of the lands they passed through. When they came upon the banks of Ganga once again, Vishwamitra started narrating the story of Vriddhim Janma Cha Gangaya, Ganga's creation or birth and her development. Now we are traveling back many years even before Ram's time. Therefore, Valmiki may not have been the first to document these events. And Ganga's story is found in some other texts as well. But as a chronicler of the history of Ram's time and the period before that, Valmiki has included this story in the Ramayana. We saw in episode 6 that Itihas is Purva Vrittam Katha Yuktam, that which has happened in the past, told its story format. So as we read the story of Ganga, let us also sift through the narration to understand which is the Purva Vrittam part, fact, and which is the Katha Yuktam part, embellishment. In ancient times, there was a great king of Ayodhya called Sagar. In his time, there was a severe water crisis. Thousands of people died. The only possible solution was to bring water down from the icy tops of Himalayas into the dry plains below, to bring down the Ganga. Told in story format, Sagar's 60,000 sons had been cursed and burned to ashes and needed Ganga's water for their redemption. Sagar, his grandson Anshuman, and great-grandson Dilip all tried hard but were unsuccessful. The land had been reeling from the water crisis for 4 generations. Katham Gangavataranam Chinta Paro Bhavat. Now it was up to Dilip's son, Bhagirath. When he became the king, Bhagirath entrusted the kingdom to his ministers and devoted himself to the task of bringing down the waters of Ganga. The challenge was not only to get the water down from great heights, but to do it safely, without causing any environmental disturbance. Gangayah patanam prithvi na sahishyati. The earth will not be able to bear the descent of Ganga's water. Ganga starts her journey at Gangotri, which is at a height of 3,400 meters or more than 11,000 feet. She reaches the plains at Haridwar, which is at only about 300 meters or 1,000 feet. The straight line distance between Haridwar and Gangotri is 138 kilometers or 86 miles. Over such a short distance, imagine water is falling down a height of 3 kilometers or 10,000 feet. Bhagirath worked extremely hard for many years, or in other words, did tapasya, and was finally able to get the water down safely. Bhagirath brought down the water in smaller streams so that the flow could be better controlled and then connected them. In story format, it is told that the force of Ganga's flow was throttled by Shiva, into whose matted hair the river fell. A scene beautifully depicted by Raja Ravi Verma in his famous painting on Ganga. But making the connections was also a huge challenge, for Ganga was lost in the maze of Shiva's hair and could not find a way out for many years. Eventually, Bhagirath was successful, digging flow paths, making bunds and embankments, or in more poetic words, Bhagirath on his chariot led the way, and Ganga followed. Yato Bhagiratho Raja, Tato Ganga Yashaswini. Wherever King Bhagirath went, Ganga followed. But there was a major problem just as the project seemed completed. Ganga's waters disappeared, perhaps split into streams and percolated into the ground. Mahatma Janhu suggested a realignment of the flow path, and finally the river came down to the plains in the desired way. In story format, the river appeared through Janhu's ears. Bhagirath charted her flow all the way to the sea. And so was completed one of the greatest civil engineering works of all time. And it was done in an environmentally sustainable way. The new river brought health and prosperity to the people. Ganga gave life. And so she is Ganga Ma, the mother. She is Bhagirathi, born through the efforts of Bhagirath. She is also called Jahnavi in memory of Janhu's contribution. By the way, since a new river was born, she must have a birthday, which we celebrate on the Dashami of Jyeshtha. Valmiki says that Ganga's waters started teeming with Matsya Kachchapasangaihi Shimshumara Ganaihi, shoals of fish, turtles and dolphins. The famous Ganga River dolphin that we can see even today. And Ganga's flow was Kvachidrutataram yati kutilam kvachidayatam vinatam kvachidudbhutam kvachidyati shanai shanaihi. At times rapid, at times slow, at times curving, at times wide, at times suddenly falling down only to rise up again. Muhururdva patham gatva papata vasudham punah. Again and again it would rise up, only to come crashing down to the ground. Sounds like a promo for whitewater rafting at Rishikesh. What a fantastic achievement by Bhagirath. To this day, a great effort is also called a Bhagirath Prayas or Gangavatarana. What an inspiring story. There is much more to it, but we need to wrap up now. As Vishwamitra said to Ram on one of the nights of their travel, Kator dharatrah ka kutstha, kathah kathayato mama. I have been telling stories, and it's past midnight now. O Ram, let us all catch some sleep so that we do not face difficulties in the journey. Always the wise old men telling the ever enthusiastic youngsters to go to bed. Iti ha asa. That is how it happened.
So Purva Vrittam Kathayuktam. That is how we can understand the story of Ganga and so many other stories in which there are poetic embellishments. Now, with that context in the Balakand, let us now move on to Ayodhya Kand, where we really start to understand what makes Ram great. What is it that he did and why he did it? Now, before we look at another video from the Ayodhya Kand, I'd also like to share with you what I found when I went to Ellora. Now, Ellora near Aurangabad has rock-cut temples, cave temples or rock-cut temples. Basically, they started with a mountain of a rock and started chipping away at stones at the rock in order to carve out a whole temple. So the temple is many stories high, and the whole thing, mind you, has not been made brick by brick from ground up, but has actually been built from top down by chipping away the rock that was not required, right? A very, very difficult process. It took, the whole Ellora caves took 600 years to build. So for 600 years, our ancestors were chipping away at rock to make these temples. 600 years. The main temple, which is right in the middle, has two sides to it. And on those two sides are carved out of the rock two stories. Again, would you like to take a guess which those two stories would be on the two sides? Which are the two stories that have inspired the people of our land, our ancestors, the most? You can put your answers in the chat session. Any thoughts on which two stories do you normally find painted or carved on temple walls? Doesn't matter if you get it wrong, take a shot. One person says, I think it's Mahabharata. That's right. One of those stories is Mahabharata. And what could be the other story on the other side? Yes, a lot of answers coming in. Mahabharata is correct. So on the two sides are carved out two stories. One has incidents from Mahabharata. And what could be the other side? Yes, there is an answer which says Ramayana, and that is correct. Good guess. Perhaps somebody says maybe it's from Ramayana. Yes. So the two stories are Ramayana and Mahabharata. Stories or incidents from the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Now think about it. Our ancestors were so inspired by the Ramayana that for 600 years they were chipping away at rock to engrave incidents from this story. What was about it? What was in this story that they were so inspired? And this is just one temple, Ellora. Throughout this land, whether you talk of poetry, of literature, architecture, all of this has been inspired so much by the Ramayana that I say this especially for those who are a bit, those of us who are a bit skeptical, saying, I don't think Ram was right in what he did. First of all, let us find out what he did. But also, before we go there, just think about this thing, that our ancestors, for hundreds of years, they were hugely inspired by the story of Ram. Shouldn't we at least find out what is it in this story that they found inspiring before we come to a decision as to whether we like it or not? So let us now go into the Ayodhya Kand and watch the first episode about Ram and see who was he really. Season 2, Episode 1.
This is Valmiki Ramayan, Season 2, Episode 1, Succession Plan. Previously in the Balakand, Valmiki told us about Ayodhya, the greatest and the grandest city in the world, Dashrath's longing for an heir, and his yajna. We heard about Ram's birth, how Vishwamitra later mentored him during their travels, and finally Ram's exploits with the Shivadhanush and his marriage to Sita. Many moons passed. Age was beginning to catch up with Dashrath. He felt that the time had come to hand over the responsibility of the empire. For years I have been devoted to the welfare of the people. I am now weary and am finding it difficult to carry on this heavy burden of duty. Jeernasyasya sharirasya vishrantim abhirochaye. I feel his body has become old and needs some rest. And of course, there was no one better placed to succeed him than Ram. Why Ram? Ram had already demonstrated through his conduct as a prince that he was the most qualified candidate for this role in every respect. Valmiki says, "In archery there is no one who can match him. He is an expert in leading and commanding the troops. Yada vrajati sangramam na vijitya nivartate. Whenever he goes into battle, he never returns without defeating the enemy. He is a great warrior in every way. In fact, the greatest of them all. And though he is overwhelmingly mighty, he is never proud of his strength." On taxation and administration, ayakarmanyupayadnyas sandrashta vyayakarmavit. He knows the right means of generating revenue for the state and the right way of expending the resources. On people skills, in demeanor and speech, he is always pleasant, mrudupurvam. He is ever grateful to those who have done a single good deed, but does not carry the grudge of even 100 offenses. He is highly adept at attracting and retaining the right individuals, and in controlling or removing those who create problems. He is most persuasive in debates and discussions, taking people along and not demanding subservience. And with regards to what we call extracurricular activities, Vaiharikanam Shilpanam Vidnyata. He is an expert in the instruments used for entertainment and sport, and is proficient in music too. Ram is always righteous, true to his word, and free from envy. He possesses a sound character with forbearance, gentleness, and a sense of gratitude. He has attained control over his senses. In the first 2 sargas of the Ayodhya Kand, Valmiki has described in fascinating detail why Ram was the right choice to succeed Dashrath. It is also amazing that such an ancient poet analyzed his character in so many ways. He talks about Ram's physical presence, how he exuded power and grace at the same time. He also mentions some very interesting behavioral traits. For instance, Ram would go up to people and initiate a conversation, and not rely on his stature and wait for them to come up to him. And from these lengthy descriptions, if we are to distill the essence of Ram, the Prince of Ayodhya, it is this. Everything that he did was driven by Praja Palana, welfare of the people, the well-being of all. For most people, self-interest comes first. then the interest of near and dear ones, and finally, if at all, the interest and well-being of society. We usually worry about rules and the right thing to do only to the extent we are forced to do so. For Ram, the priorities were inverted. His foremost commitment was to the people. His personal interest was simply absent from any of his decision-making. And he knew that society's long-term interest could only be secured through dharma, righteousness, and satya, truth. Now coming back to Dashrath's succession planning. While it was clear that Ram was the perfect candidate, it was not up to him to simply appoint Ram and thrust his decision on everyone. Dashrath had to consult all stakeholders who were going to be affected by the decision. So he convened a meeting of a parishad or council that comprised other kings as well as citizen representatives of other janpads. To the parishad, he proposed Ram's name and said, Yadidam me nurupartham maya sadhu sumantritam bhavanto me numanyantam katham va karavanyaham. If you are in favor of my proposal, kindly give me your consent. And if not, please advise what other course of action I should take. Although I favor this proposal, please do consider if some other option would bring greater good. Deliberations by the unbiased result in a better outcome. The members of the Parishad were madhyastha, unbiased, without any conflict of interest. Interestingly, the king of Kekaya, Kaikeyi's father and Bharat's grandfather, and King Janak of Mithila, Ram's father-in-law, had not been invited. This gathering was not meant to merely rubber stamp a decision already taken, but to arrive at the right choice for succession. The Parishad members had internal deliberations and then came back and announced their decision to Dashrath. Indeed, they wholeheartedly endorsed Ram's name. But upon hearing their decision, Dashrath feigned ignorance, ajananniva, and asked them why they were so keen to see Ram ascend the throne. Was he, Dashrath, not doing a good enough job? Dashrath wanted to be sure that they had arrived at this decision for the right reasons. The representatives said that the people of all lands wished to see Ram being crowned as Yuvraj. They gave many reasons for their decision, but it is telling what they said first. Ramas satpurusho loke satyas satyaparayana. In this world, Ram is the very embodiment of Satya. This was the Ram the people had chosen. Iti her asa. That is how it happened.
This was really the introduction to Ram in the first few sargas of the Ayodhya Kand. The Ramayana is really just getting started. We don't have time to watch much more. We will probably see one more episode, but I urge you to see the series and understand the full Valmiki Ramayana. All these videos are on the YouTube channel 21 Notes. 21 Notes stands for Notes from the Past for the 21st Century. What is the relevance of the Valmiki Ramayana in today's world? If you have any questions, do post them on the Q&A. Right now, we can take them now, or we can also watch the last video for today and take them after that. Let's pick the video which talks about Ram and Sita's relationship. A lot of us are very interested. We have a lot of questions about this. Sita really comes on the scene on the day that we just saw that Ram was about to be coronated. But of course, that didn't happen. Manthara poisoned Kaikeyi's mind. Kaikeyi demanded from Dashrath that Ram be sent off into exile and her son Bharat be made Yuvraj. And so Ram was sent off into exile. Ram heard about it, went to meet Kausalya, and then went to meet Sita. So this is the time at which Valmiki really introduces, they are already married, so she has made an earlier appearance, but really to understand the character, this is a good starting point. So let's see what happened when Ram went to meet Sita to tell her what Dashrath and Kaikeyi had asked for.
This is Valmiki Ramayan, Season 2, Episode 9, Sita. The terrible news of Ram's Vanvas had not yet reached Sita. For her, this was still a most joyful occasion, the day of Ram's coronation. She was eagerly waiting for him to come back after meeting Dashrath and Kaikeyi. When Ram got back, excited well-wishers still thronged his palace. He went past them with his head bent down a little. Kinchidavang mukha. One look, and Sita realized something was amiss. She started trembling upon seeing Ram distressed and anxious. Remember, Valmiki had said at the end of Balakand that Ram and Sita were so close that they could read each other's minds even when things were left unsaid. And upon seeing Sita, Ram too could not hold back his sorrow anymore. Sorrow and anxiety, not for what had happened to him, of course, but at what this meant for Sita. Sita saw that his face had turned pale and he was sweating. Vivarnavadanam prasvinnam. She asked, "What happened? Everything is ready for your coronation. Why are you like this?" And then Ram told her about Kaikeyi's demands to make Bharat the Yuvraj and to banish him, Ram, into the forest. He further told her that she ought to take care of Dashrath and Kausalya and also Sumitra and Kaikeyi. He clarified that he felt no bitterness towards Kaikeyi and still thought of her as his mother. He also counseled Sita on how to deal practically with the fact that his younger brother, Bharat, would now be the king.
I wonder how Sita felt about all this.
You don't need to wonder, because here is a woman who does not hold back her words. Sita looked at Ram in an affectionately cross way. Pranayadeva Sankruddha, and said, "What are these words that you are throwing around? I feel like laughing. They are not worthy of being spoken by you and not worth listening to either." Quite a response. Consider this. When Dashrath had heard the pronouncement, he had gone into shock. Kausalya had wailed in sorrow and Lakshman had raged. Only Ram had taken it with perfect equanimity. Now, just like him, Sita too was entirely unmoved by the news itself. For Sita was Dharmadnya and Dharmacharini. She knew Dharma and always followed it. So she said nothing about whether Ram should abide by the king's promise or not. She said not a word against her mother-in-law, Kaikeyi, who had just destroyed her life. She did not beat her chest and cry, "Why me?" Her approach was the same as Ram's. Uphold Dharma and hold no bitterness in your heart. But she had one strong objection to what Ram had said. And this was the reason for calling his words laughable. She reminded him that a husband and wife are meant to share everything. It is the husband alone that is always there for a woman, not her father, mother, or son. And a wife alone shares the destiny of her husband. O Ram, the best among men, I am also therefore required to live in the forest. Sita argued that what Kaikeyi asked of Ram automatically applied to her as well. Effectively, Sita was objecting to Ram considering her as being separate from him. And Anushishtasmi matra cha pitra cha vividhashrayam nasmi samprati vaktavya vartitavyam yathamaya. I have been taught well enough by my mother and my father about my duties in different life situations, about what I ought and ought not to do. Now there is no need to lecture me about any of this. Sita loved Ram and was totally devoted to him. Sita told him that she was least interested in the comforts of royal life and knew the difficulties of forest life. Further, they were to live as ascetics, and so she would be Niyata, Brahmacharini. She would not be a burden on him during the Vanvas and would try and help in whatever manner she could. All she wanted was to be with him. But Ram urged her to drop the idea. Sita's eyes were beginning to tear up as Ram said, Hita buddhya khalu vacho mayaitadabhidhiyate. I am saying this for your own good. The forest is full of terrible hardships. Food and water are hard to find. There are deadly snakes, dangerous insects, and wild beasts. It is a thorny path. Valmiki has devoted an entire sarga to explain these difficulties of forest life. But Sita countered, whatever the difficulties may be, I will gladly accept them only to be with you. Yas tvaya sah saswargo nirayo yas tvaya vina. For me, heaven is where we are together, and hell being without you. The tears were flowing in a torrent now. Arguing, urging, and entreating, she finally hugged Ram tightly and cried inconsolably. Patim brishamalingya chukrosha saswaram. Ram was finally convinced. He said, I did not know how you felt about it and was therefore reluctant to impose the hardship of Vanvas on you. Oh, my beloved Sita, your decision is correct. Valmiki's narration of this electrifying conversation makes this much crystal clear. Ram and Sita were totally committed to upholding dharma and totally committed to each other. For Sita and Ram, Siya Ram, their relationship was not merely a hyphenation of their names, but a hyphenation of their destiny. Iti, her, asa. That is how it happened.
I think that is all we have time for today. I now hand it back to the organizers, but before that, let me just say thank you very much everyone for attending today's session. I thank the school authorities as well as Shulini for organizing this session. Thank you very much. Students, I hope some of you are inspired to find out in Valmiki's own words, what is it that he said? If that interest and curiosity is aroused, then I think today's session would be successful.
Thank you, Yashodeep. It was indeed an insight. All of us have read Ramayana, but I wonder how many of us would actually go into applying the principles and applying the teachings into our real life. So I think it was both an eye-opener as well as a reminder that we have a heritage to follow. We should be proud of our epics. We should be proud of our traditions. And I think even after so many years in the 21st century also, they hold significance, and it is up to us to draw inferences and to take, I would say, the good out of it and apply it into our real life. Principal ma'am, may I request you to say a few words, if you are there?
Yeah, I'm there. I was so engrossed in the
Yes, ma'am.
thing, and it has enhanced our thought process. And probably I would love to watch all the episodes of 21 Notes now to get deep into this and know exactly what we do not know at the moment. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank
Yashodip
you very
ji.
much.
I think we have to do lot of introspection after watching all the episodes, and then see that how effectively we can bring them in this 21st century with our kids and with our own selves first. So let's see. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yashodeep, once again. Thank you, Vinamra. Thank you, Shikha ma'am. Thank you for organizing. Thank you, Shashank. And have a nice day, all of you. And we will look forward for more such sessions, Mr. Yashodeep, if I may get your time some
Sure.
other day in better times to come.
Indeed.
Maybe we can invite you to visit our school all the way from Bangalore.
Sure.
Thank you. It was a
Thank you.
real pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye.